Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In today's lesson, we're going to be creating a little abstract painting study of this little tomato. And this came from my little tomato plant outside, tiny little thing. And we typically, create our paintings, with the tomato facing this way. This time we're going to create it facing this way. So one thing to do is, depending on when you're watching this video, stay still, is most of us have access to tomatoes. Ideally, you want to paint from something live. That way you can actually position it to get the lights shining in different angles. If you have to use a photograph, you can go to Pixabay and find something there. But try to get yourself a tomato. I'm working really, really small with a little tiny little thing, but you can get something a little bit larger. And look for something that's shaped pleasant, has a pleasing shape on the top. This one has a little bit of a star shape. So work with that. And then once you get your tomato, place it wherever. But wherever you're sitting down, get your painting station set up. And then place your tomato. And then don't move it. Don't change your lighting. Don't do anything. If you have to go away, you can turn your lighting off. But leave everything in place. Because what's going to happen, for example, see where the highlight is at the top here? It's around the 10, 11 o'clock. If I were to move the tomato over here, now the highlight changes to over here. If I were to move the tomato over here, now the highlight changes over here. Okay, so make sure wherever you start painting, leave the tomato there. The other thing is, what you're seeing is the absolute top view of the tomato, and there's a light here, and there's a light here, and there's a light up on top. What I'm looking at the tomato from this angle. So I actually see highlights here and all the way around, where you're likely seeing just the highlight here and up here. So I'm going to be painting this based on what I see in the monitor right in front of me, not what I see here. All right, so we have our limited palette all set up here. I added an extra color for a trick question. So the limited palette that I have, and I'm not including any neutrals, we haven't even gone there yet. Phthalo green blue, phthalo green yellow, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, permanent alizarin crimson, naphthol red, which is like a little bonus, naphthol red light, Paranone orange, Hansa yellow medium, Hansa yellow light, titanium white. I threw in naphthol red here just to challenge you to see what you could figure out with the colors we're going to choose for this tomato. So what you're going to do is set out, really you're going to need a green, you're going to need a yellow, and you're going to need a red. The primary color. No, well, if you don't have a green, you'll need the blue. So the primary colors here, but I like using the phthalo colors because you only need very little. And as you go on, as we start doing more videos, we're going to start addressing yellows and start addressing greens and going through. Right now we're focusing on red. So if we take a look at these, so alizarin crimson is a red that leans towards blue. Naphthol red is something more in the middle. It leans a little bit towards blue. And then we have naphthol red light, which is a red that leans towards orange. And then when you take a look at my tomato, I automatically see. The first question I'm going to ask is, what color is it? It's red. Okay, so automatically you go to the red. Then you say, okay, well, is it lighter or darker than the actual paint? Well, I don't know. I haven't put it on the palette yet. Is it lighter or darker? Is it brighter or duller? Okay, those are questions you have to ask. And does it lean towards blue or does it lean towards orange? So those are your three questions that you have to start off with. And once you start making your paintings, keep asking yourself those questions, and that way you'll be able to analyze and adjust. It sounds complicated, but once you've done it a few times, it becomes really, really easy. So not to waste paint, because I already know what color I'm going to be using. So at face value, do you think that this alizarin crimson is the color for the tomato? Well, let's take a look. Oh, I don't have any more. Oh, darn, I'm going to have to get some scrap paper. Darn, 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 darn. I was going to put that right on here. What do you think? At face value? I'll let you figure that one out. Alizarin crimson. Oh my goodness. Naphthol red. And for those of you that have been with me for a while, you already know what color you should be using for this tomato. What do you think? At face value, we're painting this way. Red that leans towards blue, a neutral red that leans a bit towards blue, and then a red that leans towards orange. Well, if you pick this one, you got to go back and watch the videos on the color red. If you pick this one, yes, you're right. If you pick this one, yes, you're right. Because Naphthol red is a neutral red, you can make it a little bit more orange by adding orange or yellow to it. Naphthol red light is my go-to color because it's already set up. So that's the color we'll be using. But if you have a neutral red that really doesn't lean either way, you can just add a bit of a yellow that leans towards orange, or add an orange to it. Okay, so there we go. So that's your first quiz. And I'm really gonna paint this freestyle. So I already know that I'm gonna need Naphthol red light. So that's my red. At first glance, let me just push these up and then I'm going to pull down just what I use. At first glance, is this lighter or darker? Well, if I squint my eyes, this seems a bit darker because we have some shadow in here. The way I'm looking at it, but the way you're looking at it, I have to find something pleasing. I want to try to get it this way. So actually here, squint your eyes and see. This is darker than this. So I already know I need to darken it. What can I darken it with? Well, I can darken it with some of the neutral colors, like the burnt siennas and that. Not going to neutrals. We're only going to use our main colors. We can neutralize and darken with a color opposite on the color wheel. What is that? Green. Which green? Well, if we take a look at our color wheel, this is more Naphthol red light here, and it goes straight down, and we can, really it's a neutral green we need to be looking at, which doesn't exist. We can try and experiment by making a neutral green if you were using Naphthol red light only by taking a bit of the phthalo green blue and phthalo green yellow. But we're using something that's a red orange. So what are we going to use for that? Orange is opposite blue on the color wheel. So red orange, you're going to look at something that's more on the blue green side. We have to be careful though, because the phthalo blue is so overpowering. I'm going to stick with the phthalo green that leans on the blue side. I'm going to go right over here. And if I need to, I can add a bit of this, but I'm going to stick with this right here. I already know that the phthalo blue, the phthalo green that leans towards blue, is going to be a nice complement to this over here. But you know what? We're going to have to give it a try. So I'm going to pull this one out. Oh, you guys can't see the paints. I'm trying to have it where it doesn't, they don't keep rolling around. There we go. All right, so if we're going to use that to darken it up a little bit. The stem. Well, the stem is kind of a greenish brown. I'm going to look at, let's see, well, we're going to use white for sure. We have to use white for the values. And I'm thinking if we use a bit of the green, but the stem is not a green that, well, it's a greenish brown, but it doesn't lean towards blue, it leans towards yellow. Well, we could do one of two things. We could use a phthalo green blue and then add more yellow to it. We can do that. You know what? Let's give it a try. I'm going to take Hansa Yellow Medium for that. Okay. So my gut instinct though is to use phthalo green yellow. That's my gut instinct for that. And then I'm looking at some of the highlight around here, which does have some yellow. Has a bit of orange in it. So this is where it comes down to one of the rare moments that I do use orange. I don't like orange per se. We could take Naphthol red light and just add more Hansa Yellow Medium to it. It doesn't make a clean orange. So I'm going to pull out the Paranone orange for a lot of the orange spots at the top. So out of our entire palette and all the colors, we've got phthalo green blue, Naphthol red light, Paranone orange, Hansa Yellow Medium, and titanium white. And I'm thinking, I just realized now that these colors here all lean towards orange, leans towards orange, and I'm using phthalo green blue, which leans towards the blue side. I should be using phthalo green yellow, because that way it'll lean towards the yellow side. So let me switch that up. I'm going to switch that to yellow. We'll see what happens. All right, so I'm going to put the paints on the palette, and then I will be back in a couple of minutes. Yes, I moved my tomato. You know why? Because when I went moving, I was setting up the palette. I love the highlight here. So what I did, I took my phone and I took a picture of it. And then this is what I've got. Now, you may see maybe a little bit dark because for some reason, oh, look at the fingerprints. For some reason, the camera, I think, is adjusting. I threw it, straighten it up. I threw it into Lightroom and did just a little bit of adjustments. Just want to show you what the original picture is like. That's what the original picture is like. Okay, so what I did, oh darn, I lost all my stuff. Hang on. So all I did is I went over to, I've got a preset set up, and then I loaded it to brighten everything up. And then I just cropped it to get rid of all this extra stuff on the outside. So that's what I'm going to be going with. And you can use Snapseed as well for that. Snapseed is free. Lightroom for mobile is also free, so you can use that. So you've got a couple of options for what you want to do. Okay, so I've got my little tomato here. I also have the photograph that I took, which is sitting up there on my phone. And let's get started. All right, so we're going to be freestyling this. You can make a sketch if you want, but the purpose of this is not to make a pretty painting. It's to match the colors. So again, we're going to rehash the questions. Now, what you're seeing may be a little bit dark. I'm not sure. My monitor is quite dark, so that's why I'm looking at this the way it is and the photograph. First color I see red. I go to my palette and I look, what reds do I have? I've also got my paints here. I've got my red here. Then I say to the question, okay, is it lighter or darker? It's a little bit darker. Okay, that's a bit darker. So I need to create a bit of a darker red and have some scrap paper so where you can compare the colors if need be. So because we've got a lot of background stuff going on here, where I did this yesterday with the gesso, you can choose to go right to a darker red, then build up the highlights from that. We can do that. Or you can just choose to base a red first and then build up your highlights. And the more layers of paint you put on, the more this is going to disappear. I'm just going to build up a bit of a darker red right now. And I'm just grabbing just a little bit of the phthalo green yellow. And basically now we just have to, let's make something round. Looking at my tomato. Again, it's not about making a perfect. One thing I got to start doing is not cheaping out on paint. I use such little paint. That's better. It's not about making a perfect painting. This is about color. You can make your tomato square if you want. And try not to make it too big, otherwise it'll take you too long to do and you won't be able to keep up with the exercises. I've also started painting standing up. It's better on my back, but my feet are asleep. There we go. So it almost hid everything underneath. Now, I don't know if you can see. Is that? Yeah, it is. I see a little shadow here, right here. I'm going to make this abstract and just do the tomato. That's all I'm going to do. All right, so I'm going to rinse my brush. So there we have our darker red. So that'll take care of the area around there. And remember, your acrylics will dry darker than this. And what you could do at this point, because it's so far away, myself, I can compare the colors and I'm fine. You could also take a picture with your phone and then display the phone next to the tomato, or take a picture of the tomato and then bring it closer to your painting, either one, if that's how you want to try doing it. Okay. We can work this wet on wet. Now I want to build up, as I'm going to go around the top, I'm going to build up with a little bit more red right into the paint. And I'm looking at my piece and I need to, right about here. It's just right at the top edge here. And I'm just going to dry brush that in. Ah, my Fitbit just vibrated. Time for your 250 steps. There we go. And I use my finger because it removes a little bit of the paint that's here. It gives you all that variation. I pick up a bit more of that dark and just put that in there. Getting a bit more of a softer blend. Like that. All right, so now I'm going to look at this again. Okay, well, colors are pretty bang on. Now, if I stand here, I don't see, I see a highlight right under here, the reflected light. If I stand right on top of it, I don't see that. So I have to decide, okay, which way, well, how am I going to paint this? Am I going to paint this, you know, based on what I see? No, I'm going to paint it straight on. So I'm going to just stand over and hopefully my head won't get in the way. I need to put a little bit now right around where the stem is. That's orange. And then the highlight is here, here, and here. So now I'm going to bring in some Paranone orange. And I'm looking, okay, is this lighter or darker? Well, this is much lighter. Is it brighter or is it duller? This is way too bright. This is way too bright. And so I'm going to bring in some Naphtha red light. A little bit of orange. And bring that right here. A bit more. May have to bring in a little bit of white. I want to reserve the white till the end. I'm going to put that right in here. Okay. Then I'm going to go right into Hansa Yellow Medium in my dirty brush while the paint is wet. Right there. Oh, that is so pretty. You may not be able to see this. I don't know. Let me put the monitor. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, you know what I should do? Let me get a little bit closer. Okay, well, I moved everything over. Then my tomato fell on the floor. And so I don't know if this is going to last. We'll have to work it. So I ended up having to move. I ended up having to move everything. So it's not ideal because now the lighting has changed. All right, so I'm just going to make a bit of an adjustment here. And hopefully you can see that. So now I have to take a look, say, okay, now with what I've painted, is it lighter or darker than my tomato? It's darker. I still have to bring in more light. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with the white, take a little bit of Naphtha red light, a bit more than that, and a touch of Hansa Yellow Medium. The white is going to make it really stand out. And if I take my paper, come right here, and it's pretty close. I've got glare, 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 glare. I'm having to always move over. See, now where I've moved it, I see more of the orange. So I'm just going to dry brush this around a little bit more. Get a really light blend on that. And as I dry brush, just use my finger. A little bristle brush would have been nice for that. Something like this. Let me try that. You don't have to do this. I love using this as a, what is this? A Bringle Miracle Blender. You know those magic brushes? I love. The soft grips are nice too, but they're too big. Dry brushing just puts a really soft blend. Chaos hair on everything. But you have to make sure that the bottom layer is perfectly dry. Otherwise, you're going to lift the paint up. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more yellow. Right in here. And go around. You'll get to understand the feeling of the color as you start, well, feeling of the brush actually, when you'll get to know when you need to pull that brush up. Still working wet on wet. You will choose whatever method you want. all I'm doing is I'm just adding more yellow and more yellow because yellow is transparent. So naturally everything's going to turn orange. Now what I'm also doing is I need to think of this little stem thing here, these little doodads that I need to create enough of a contrast. And as artists, we are allowed to change whatever we want. If I was to paint this as a pure, real still life where I wanted the colors to be really nice and true, I would make this much darker, and that way I would put highlights in there that will really have a strong contrast. What I could have also done was just go back out to the garden and pick a different tomato. There we go. And all that nice modeling, which is visible right in there. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, getting a smaller brush. I hate working with tiny brushes. I don't like it. What we're going to do is we need to put the highlights on the tomato before we put the stems in. So I'm going to come in with white, and I'm going to tint that with a little bit of yellow. I don't want to make a stark white. Just make it creamy. Because when you make it creamy, with a bit more yellow, you can put your highlight, then you can put another blotch of white on top. So because everything moved, I can use my reference photo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of water to make that thinner. Okay, so I see from my angle a highlight here. And I want to break it up. I don't want to make it perfect. Okay. And from the light, I see a big highlight right here. Again, you may not see it because you're looking at it from straight on. I'm over here and the tomato's over here. So when I move over here, the light that's coming down, the light's over here. So there is no light coming this way. So the highlights are different other than my... I really should show you guys a picture of all the lighting in here because it probably doesn't make sense. I have an overhead light in front and above. I have a light here, I have a light here, and I have a light on top. This is why you need to work on studies using your own pieces. Okay. I see I see one here. Then I see another one on top. So I've got this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're good. And now look at the highlight. Is it lighter or darker? It's not too bad. Is it brighter or duller? That's a bit dull. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more white. And then leaning towards blue or leaning towards orange. I'm going to keep it on the orange side because it's just all that reflected light. So it took a little bit more white. And I'm just going to pop a bit more of that highlight. No, I don't like straight round lines. Here we go. There's also a reflected light right there. Here. But if I move over here, now it's gone. So keep that in mind. When you're painting your study, do not move the subject. Okay, the stem. This is where we were contemplating with the type of green. So I'm going to need a small brush. So I'm going to take a good chunk of white. And then I'm going to take, let's take roughly the same amount of Hansa Yellow Medium. If you're using CAD colors, you can use CAD Yellow Medium. So we're using white, then a yellow that leans towards orange, and then for this experiment, we're using a blue that leans towards, a green that leans towards yellow. And a speck of green. Oh, see, to me, that's too bright. That's okay. We know how to dull that down. Okay, lighter or darker? That's way too light. I need to darken it. Brighter or duller? This is way too bright. And does it lean to the right side of the color wheel? Yeah, we're on the yellow. So I think we're okay on that. So the questions that we have to ask is lighter or darker, brighter or duller? Well, if we have this yellow green. I'm going to make it a bit more green. If we have this yellow green, and I'm making it a little bit more green than this because these stems are dead, they're brown. But I need to dull this down. We can add a neutral, or we can add an opposite on the color wheel. So let's take a little bit of Naphthol red light and see what happens. Wow, look at that. There we go. It's still a little bit too yellow. I'm going to take a little bit more green. A little bit more than that. There we go. Okay, I need to make that. Now, I can make this a little bit darker, and it was just matters of going back and forth with the red and the green. Don't be tempted to use black. Black is really going to make stuff dull. I'm going to go with a bit more green. We're getting there. I think I'm squinting my eyes, and I think between the lightness and darkness, we're almost there. And I'm going to go with a little bit of orange. Yeah, there we are. It's not a pretty color, but the stem's dead. So, you know, what are we going to do? There's parts here that are quite dark, and the stems are actually curling up now because as they're under the light, they're drying out even more. In a pinch, now I would hope that you wouldn't do this, but in a pinch, you could turn around and just add a little bit of burnt umber to this to dull it down much faster. Okay, much faster. We can also try and say, well, if this is more of a yellow green, a yellow greenish, you know, what can we do to make it a little bit darker? We can go to the, you know, the color wheel and go maybe a little bit more on the blue side, but I don't want to add any blue to this. So I'm just gonna, ooh, that's too much. All right, I think we got it right there. So it's just a balance. Still a little bit more on the green side. I'm going to take a little bit of water. And now it's more of a star. So I'm going to start right in the middle. Okay, yeah, it's just like a star. Right there. 1, 2, 3. This one's short. This one's a little bit longer. 4, and this one's a bit more on the side. Okay, then I have to kind of connect them inside. Remember, this is going to get darker as it dries. That's why I didn't go over crazy darkening that. And this is likely going to be hard for you to see. So I'm just fattening up the stems at the bottom. They're not perfectly straight. Now these ones here are really perky. I'm going to twist this a little bit. And this one curls up. It's depending on where I'm standing. That's how it looks different. There we go. Now on my dirty brush, I'm going to pick up a little bit of white. And depending on where I'm standing, the overhead light is hitting it there, right there, and here. That's where the overhead light's hitting it. And dry. I'm going to take more green, more red. Yeah, that's a nice dark right there. Oh my God, I got in the first shot. So more red and green right in the dirty brush. And I'm going to come in here. Now where I'm standing here, dark here, dark at the tip, because this is where it's curling, curling up. And we have a little bit of dark right there. And then stem. Yeah, I probably should have picked a much nicer tomato. This, I mean, this at the top, it looks silly. There we go. All right, so the colors are okay. And then from here, you just let it dry, and then you just keep adjusting and adjusting and adjusting if need be. So there we go. See, I'm putting here, see how the highlights are changing? This is why it's important to set it and don't move it. And even if you need the discipline, put X's on the floor where your feet need to be in order for you to stay put, or even put maybe rolled up tea towels along the side so you can't sit outside that spot. So that's something that you can do as well, and that'll help you stay put while you're painting. All right. Then from here, if this was more of a formal study, I would just clean up the edges a little bit more. Come in here, make this a little bit nicer. Take a little bit of water. I would turn my book around and just clean these edges up. And using the water keeps the paint transparent, so you're not going to have a real big boost of color. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed this. So you've got the pop quiz that was in the beginning, where I did give you the answer of which red to use on the palette. So what I want you to do for your homework is, there's going to be 2 pictures you're going to post. One picture of the actual red, when you look at your tomato, and say, okay, what's the red that I see? Like, what color is it? It's red. Then you're going to pick the red that you're going to use. I want a picture of that red only, the actual raw color. So for this example, I would take a picture of this red. And then you're also going to post a picture of your finished tomato. Remember, it's not about perfection, about painting. All we're looking at is color. Okay, I want to make sure you understand what you see. What color do you see? Is it lighter or darker? Is it brighter or duller? And which way does it lean on the color wheel? That's what I want to make sure that you understand. Okay, so don't worry if your tomato is square. I actually like that better because it'd be really, really cool. All right, so post your pictures. And if you're watching this on YouTube, head on over to my Facebook page or in the community, because you can't post pictures in YouTube. So we're going to do everything over there. If you're watching this in the community or on the Facebook page, post your pictures below. So your 2 pictures, the picture of the red that you used and a picture of your finished tomato. And any aha moments or struggles or questions that you have, post those as well. And I'd be happy to take care of it. All right, so until I see you in the next video, stay inspired.